Good evening, Manhattan Beach. I'm Assemblymember Al Marasucci, proudly representing Manhattan Beach in the South Bay in the California Legislature. I want to welcome everyone for this virtual community coffee, where we, want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, voice your concerns on anything related to what's going on in your community. I'm very pleased to be joined by your mayor, Hildy Stern, as well as your city manager, Bruce Moe. Welcome, Mayor. Welcome, Mr. Moe. So what I'd like to do before I give a chance to hear from our mayor and city manager, I just want to give you an overview of the format for tonight. I'm just going to run through some of the issues that I know we've been hearing. My office has been hearing from our Manhattan Beach constituents, whether it's COVID or housing or homelessness. We know that there are a lot of issues that we could cover, but I just want to give a brief overview of what we've been hearing from you and what I've been working on. And then I'll turn it over to Mayor Stern and the city manager, Mr. Moe, because I know a lot of times, people don't really make the distinction between what's a state issue or what's a federal issue or what's a local issue. And so hopefully between myself and Mayor Stern and your city manager, Mr. Moe, that we'll be able to answer any and all questions that you may have. So does that sound good? Okay, I'm joined by Aaron Forberger, who is your Manhattan Beach field representative. He works out of our South Bay district office. And so any issues or concerns that I cannot directly assist you with, please contact Aaron Forberger out of our South Bay Torrance district office. Aaron, how many people do we have on the call so far?
So we've got 16 right now. About 4 or 5 of those are staff.
Okay.
8 or 9 residents.
Okay. Well, good. We'll have a nice, intimate conversation on what's on your mind, and that'll be more time for people to be able to raise their issues, and more time for us to talk about it. So, all right, Aaron, should I go forward?
Take it away.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, first of all, let me, give the obligatory acknowledgement that in case you didn't know, this has been a tough 2 years ever since the pandemic has started. And of course, like all of you, I've been struggling to stay safe. And I just got my booster shot a couple of weeks ago, and so I'm feeling like I have my superpowers restored, but I'm hoping that all of you have received your vaccination. I continue to believe in the science of the vaccines, and I do believe that the vaccines are going to continue to be the best way for us to get back to normal as soon as possible, or as close to as normal as soon as possible. I know that just a couple of weeks ago, we started to hear about this new Omicron variant, and it's reopened a lot of our concerns. But it seems like some of the preliminary evidence seems to indicate that the best thing that we can do to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, continues to be to get your vaccine, to get your booster if you haven't already scheduled it. We know that getting control of this pandemic is going to largely determine how our economic recovery continues. When we started out with the pandemic in March of 2020, the year 2020 was largely the year of shutdowns and closures, whether businesses or schools, in order to try to deal with this unprecedented pandemic. But we know that 2021, we started to see some encouraging signs of economic recovery. Many of our businesses have been reopening. The stock market, frankly, has been doing well. And so, a lot of people have been doing pretty good now economically, notwithstanding the pandemic. But we know that too many people continue to struggle with all of the challenges that we're facing. So again, the best way for us to continue our economic recovery is to continue to fight the pandemic, get vaccinated, wear your masks, all those rules that you've heard ad nauseum. Moving on to the next topic, I just want to touch upon housing. I know that we've probably heard more on the housing issue, and there's been some particularly controversial bills. Most controversial, Senate Bill 9 and Senate Bill 10, both bills, along with several other bills that we've been passing in the state capitol and the state legislature, all designed to try to address the housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis, the lack of housing supply for those of those Californians, many of whom our children, our grandchildren, who grew up in the South Bay and want to have an opportunity to be able to afford to buy a home, to buy a condo, to buy a townhouse where they grew up in the South Bay. To that end, there have been a series of bills that we have been debating in recent years to try to increase the overall supply of housing, on the basic theory of supply and demand, that the more housing supply that we have, the quicker we can make housing more affordable, or as affordable as possible, given that sometimes it seems like, the whole world wants to live on the coast of California, and most, especially everyone in the whole world wants to live in Manhattan Beach. But we know that that cannot come at the expense of, the quality of life and the demands on the infrastructure that are imposed as a result of increased development, increased building of housing. And so, I'm a strong believer that, while we do need to increase housing supply, it should not come at the expense of local control. And that is why I voted against SB 9 and SB 10. I do believe, again, I do believe that we do need to increase housing supply overall. But, as a former Torrance Planning Commissioner, I dealt with many of the issues that I know your mayor and city council continue to wrestle with, issues of how do you responsibly balance development and building more housing with the accompanying demands on your local infrastructure, whether it's school enrollment, traffic, water, all of the demands, all the infrastructure needs that new housing creates. And I do believe, I continue to believe that local government, your mayor and city council and city hall are in the best position to be able to make those local development decisions, local planning decisions, and one size clearly should not and does not fit all. And that is what I've been fighting for as your state representative in Sacramento. But as you may well know, that fight is ongoing, and so stay tuned. Be happy to answer any questions on that. But to that end, in terms of supporting my showing my support for local control, I did introduce Assembly Concurrent Amendment ACA 7, which is a bill that is seeking to reassert the city zoning and land use decisions to take precedence over any state laws that infringe upon local control, infringe on your city's ability to make the decisions in terms of land use and planning. That bill, is the fight for that bill has now been transitioned into a statewide ballot proposition that I know many of our local South Bay elected officials have been working on. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that effort. Related to housing, of course, is the issue of homelessness. I mean, the ongoing homeless crisis is being driven and is directly related to the ongoing affordable housing crisis. As I've heard from our county homeless authority and local homeless advocates, what is really driving the ever increasing population of the homeless is not only the unmet mental health issues, as well as substance abuse issues that involve too many of those living on our streets and our sidewalks and in their cars. But at its very core, it is directly tied to the lack of affordable housing. I mean, if you talk to a lot of people that work on a day-to-day basis with the homeless, they'll tell you that often the most typical profile for someone who ends up living on the streets or on our sidewalks or in their cars are people that were one job loss away or one illness away from missing their latest rent payments, not being able to keep up with their rents, and often from being kicked out of their apartments to living in their cars or trucks, to if they have more serious mental health or substance abuse issues, living on our streets. I know that the issue of the homelessness is an issue that many Manhattan Beach residents are passionate about trying to come up with a compassionate and responsible way to address their needs. I went to your hometown fair a couple of months ago and met with a local organization, Manhattan Beach Safe, and heard their passionate calls for among other things, trying to make some legal changes to the definition of what constitutes a person to be gravely disabled for the purpose of getting mental health intervention. And largely as a result of that conversation that I had with the MB Safe folks, I decided to look into it. And I'm now working with some of my colleagues in the Assembly on a bill to try to change that definition of the gravely disabled in order to try to, again, come up with a more compassionate and responsible way to help, especially with those suffering from mental illness who are living homeless. Be happy to answer more questions about that. Last but not least, before I turn it over to Mayor Stern, education. I'm a former school board member in Torrance. I'm a parent of a daughter in public schools, and public education continues to be not only one of my top priorities, but I know it's one of the main reasons why many families live in Manhattan Beach, because of your excellent school district. I will continue to fight for our school districts to get our fair share of state funding, so that you'll have to stop relying so much on your wonderful Manhattan Beach Education Foundation that's raising millions of dollars every year, and so that we can continue to have the best public school districts in the entire state, right here in Manhattan Beach and in the South Bay. So those are just some of the things that I've been working on, but let me just turn it over to Mayor Stern and City Manager Mo for any opening comments, and then we can jump right into questions, concerns. Hopefully we can have a good conversation. about the issues that you're concerned about. So, Mayor Stern, good to see you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, and thank you for inviting me and for bringing this conversation to Manhattan Beach. I really appreciate you, Assembly Member. You've always been so supportive of Manhattan Beach and of all of the communities in your district. It's always nice to see you. And as you noted, you come to our hometown fair. You are here on our streets talking to our residents and talking to us as leaders. And we really appreciate so much of the support and the presence that you have in Manhattan Beach. So, and I love this opportunity to have a more personal one-on-one with people as they ask questions. And I really look forward to hearing the questions again. I remember this fondly last year when we had this opportunity. So thank you for that. So, and in Manhattan Beach, we do share similar, the concerns and the challenges that you raised equally. We also have, of course, we have the challenges of COVID. And we too are guided by the experts who know how to follow the science and what that science is in our county and in our state. And in Manhattan Beach, we are guided by those experts and that science that is guiding us in our decisions here. We recognize the imperative to get vaccinated, and we encourage that, and we are doing that with our city employees and certainly with our community, which shows a very robust and responsible response to the vaccinations. And we continue to recognize how important that is as we too gear up for the concern about the next variant and how that's going to impact Manhattan Beach. And we are recognizing that, and we are addressing that even in our upcoming meeting when we have to, consider how to support our businesses and our community when we have to gear up for what could be another concern with the next variant. So, COVID left us concerned, but it also, we are very fortunate that we are in a strong economic position in Manhattan Beach. And so we are able to support our local businesses, we're able to support our residents, and we're able to still be able to respond back with strength, at least economically. And while we recognize the loss that so many people have experienced, we are looking forward to a time when we can continue to share our community together, which we've been very fortunate to do in the last month, as we've had so many of our community programs and events coming back to Manhattan Beach. It's been wonderful. So we too share the concerns about housing. We know that the lack of a housing supply is a statewide issue. It's a county issue. And we in Manhattan Beach recognize the responsibility to look for ways to support this concept of affordable housing, which of course is a challenge in Manhattan Beach. And we're not, we wouldn't be naive enough to say that that we don't see the challenge in Manhattan Beach. But we also recognize that increased density, which was the goal, which was really probably the output of the SB 9 and 10. We recognize too that as a broad stroke, if we are just attempting to increase density in these communities where our stock is so limited, and affordability of housing is so difficult, that it's not necessarily going to result in increased affordable housing in Manhattan Beach. We'll be discussing the ACA 7 that you have introduced. We'll be discussing that in an upcoming meeting to gather support for that initiative. And we are at this time updating our housing element and trying, recognizing that we too have a mandate to increase our housing by a number that is quite a challenge for Manhattan Beach with our very limited stock here. Homelessness too, we share that issue, and we have a vigorous effort to address the unhoused in Manhattan Beach. We really value the housing navigators that we have in Manhattan Beach that do establish relationships with those living unhoused. And they are the connection to creating those relationships so that we can try to better interact and help those living unhoused with services and housing, which we recognize is such an important effort. And we continue to coordinate our efforts with our neighboring communities. We recognize that homelessness is a fluid situation for so many and is best served as we work together to try to address that. So I'm going to pass this now on to our city manager, but I really look forward to questions and concerns and understanding from our residents and from those of you that have joined us tonight about what your concerns are in Manhattan Beach, and hope that we can help to work together as we try to address those questions. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I look forward to this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Moe, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Assembly Member.
Thank you for joining us.
Sure. So both of you talked about economic strength, and as a former finance director for the city of Manhattan Beach, I'm pleased to tell you all that we are in good financial shape. In fact, our mid-year budget review is going before the council tomorrow on the consent calendar as an update. We're providing quarterly updates as we go through these trying times, but Manhattan Beach has performed very well. And part of that is that property tax, and we talk about housing, but property tax in particular is the city's biggest revenue source in the general fund. It's nearly 50% of the general fund. And when you have your largest revenue growing by 6, 7, 8% a year, that helps offset some of these costs. It helps offset some of these costs that we're encountering here as inflation is kicking in for us now. But things are looking good for us. And of course, we've gone back to FEMA to try to get reimbursement for many of the expenses that we incurred during the pandemic. And of course, we also received some funding from the federal government through the rescue plan that will be very, very helpful for us going forward. Other things that are going on, we talk about homelessness. I see that George Gabriel, our homelessness liaison, is on the call with us today. George has been instrumental in our response to everything homeless that the city has been addressing. He works closely with MB Safe, as we talked about earlier. And in fact, recently council gave us authority and spending authority to add another housing navigator, separate and apart from what we're getting through the grant funding from the county. And also we were able to acquire a couple of beds for our homeless community for temporary shelter when needed. Other things that are going on, perhaps some of you saw the press release last week that our police chief is retiring after 30 plus years with the city. Chief Abel is a remarkable leader, and we are going to miss him so much. I can't even begin to tell you. But if any of you had interaction with Derek, Chief Abel, you know what a great leader he is and how much he's brought to the department for over 30 years. Big shoes to fill. We're starting that recruitment process. And so we'll have more news on that. But he's agreed to stay on through probably end of March, beginning of April, as we continue that search and find the next leader for the men and women of law enforcement here in Manhattan Beach. Very important position, obviously. And part and parcel of that, you've probably seen the signs on Manhattan Beach Boulevard that talk about recruiting police officers, and that's a top priority for us. It's a very, very challenging environment for us, for everybody, to get law enforcement individuals given the last couple of years and everything that's gone on. And so there's a real push for us to get people on board. We do a good job of recruiting. Many of you may know that about 1% of all applicants actually make it all the way through the process to become a police officer. So it's it's a very stringent process, and in this environment it makes it even more difficult. But it is our highest priority. We talked about vaccinations. About 85–86% of the city employees are already vaccinated. I mean fully vaccinated. And so the council did pass a policy here recently, or mandating that we have those vaccinations in place for all city employees. We've given them a little bit of extra time here through June of next year to make that happen. And we're pushing as hard as we can to get people to take care of that, to vaccinate themselves, so we protect you as a public in your interactions with the employees, and the employees are protected from their interaction with the public. Certainly, it's important to us. Yes, we've all lived through COVID for the last 20, 21 months now. But I'm sure some of you were able to come down and enjoy the downtown holiday open house. That was probably one of our first big events since things loosened up. And this Sunday, I'm sure you're all aware, it's the annual fireworks, 4 to 8 p.m. Come on down. We're going to be encouraging people to actually use the beach to spread out so that we have some social distancing going on while everybody can enjoy the signature event that Manhattan Beach puts on every year. It's an awesome event. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along here tonight. But again, I appreciate being invited and look forward to the questions. All
right. Well, thank you very much. I think between you and the mayor, I'm learning a lot. This is a great opportunity for me to get updated on what's happening in your beautiful city. So thank you to both of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. Why don't we jump right into it? This is for you, Manhattan Beach citizens that have taken the time to join us on this Zoom call. And so, Aaron, let me ask you. Before we go any further, let me just give some basic ground rules. Aaron's in charge of unmuting people as well as getting people going. So Aaron, if you can let me know if you can either use that raise hand function, or I see John physically raising his hand there, but I'm going to leave it to Aaron to make the call as to who's first.
Thank you, Assembly Member. So yeah, the easiest way to do this, everybody, is just to use the raise hand feature. I'll try to do my best to keep a running log of who's going. I see John physically raising his hand. I think I'll probably just start by unmuting you in 1 second here. Alternatively, if you'd rather use the chat function, that's fine. I think we usually prefer a conversation, but it's really up to you. So yeah, we've got quite a bit of time to go through some questions. So I guess, okay, John, it looks like you're ready to go. It looks like you're unmuted. So have at it.
First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. Hey, Assemblyman Elmer, thank you very much for hosting this. This is excellent, and I appreciate all your efforts for our community. I also want to add a thank you to Hildy and for her efforts. She's been working for quite a number of years now for our city, which is nice. And lastly, while I'm giving all the kudos, I once again want to give Bruce Moe the highest praise I can give. He is without a doubt the finest asset we have in City Hall, and I'm so happy that he has continued with us and not taken retirement. And so thank you, Bruce, and all of you. Okay. The question or the situation that I wish to address is the Bruce's Beach thing that we discussed at the city hometown fair. I appreciate that conversation we had at the hometown fair. When I was somewhat surprised to hear that you were not aware of all the different homeowners that were involved in that eminent domain case that led to the Bruce's family property and the others being sold to Manhattan Beach. As I told you, there were a total of 30 properties that were involved, and there were actually 14 of those parcels that were given to the county by Manhattan Beach. And now the thing that concerns me, and I raised that at our discussion, the hometown fair, was that only the Bruce's. Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. The situation that I was concerned with is that the state SB 796 is only address the Bruce family and their properties, and there's a number of, there were 14 in total properties in that county, and only 2 were addressed. The other 12 properties, these people invested in property for the future and things like that, but they were sort of left out in the cold. And so, as you also said, you were so interested in equality and equal treatment for all people in California, that I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do for all those families that were impacted by the eminent domain and the action by the state and the county governments. And so I know you received an email from me, and so I'm hopeful that you can do something to make it just. I mean, I appreciate all the Black Lives Matters movements, but for equality, everybody must be treated equally, not just one group. And so
Mm.
I'm looking forward to the state taking some actions to have the county be fair to everyone involved, not just one group. Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
what,
Mhm.
following the email I sent you, have you had any opportunities to talk with your fellow assemblymen, or what has happened?
Well, yeah, thank you, John, and good to see you again. I know we talked about this at the hometown fair. Since then, I've had a chance to talk with Supervisor Hahn, who really led the discussion in terms of the county returning the land to the Bruce family. And the state legislation was really to enable or to support the county's original move to propose returning the land to the Bruce family. But I know the point was made to me that I'm not sure what the circumstances were in terms of the others losing their property, but I think the issue with the Bruce family was that the historical context in which they had their land taken by the city through eminent domain was in the context of all the racism that they were facing at that time, where there was a movement of those affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan at that time. I believe I'm forgetting the dates. I think we were talking about 1912. Correct me if I'm wrong, but um, that was part of the desire to make amends for the Bruce family that was operating, one of only two beach resorts that Black families can go to at that time. So, if you know of others that also lost their properties, if you know their descendants or their family representatives, I'd be happy to talk with them. But I just want to make the point that it wasn't just the mere fact that they may have lost their property through eminent domain, but it was also the historical context in which the eminent domain took place that was part of the motivation for what some people were calling reparations for what happened almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, if I may interject, I
Sure.
heard all of that, and I recognize that, and I sit and think about a similar scenario, because my background is engineering, and when a theory comes forward, you have to test it to its limits to make sure it works in all cases for something to be valid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's say you're in a car accident that someone was caused because they were going at a certain race or something, and your family was at that same location and run over and plowed and damaged, hurt, even killed.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would want the fair treatment, equal treatment, that your family wasn't ignored, because you're not the popular let's put it that way. So all I said is, I'm maybe I say stupid engineer, because I'm more, just straight statements, and if it's fair for all, it's fair for all. If some group is given reparations and remunerations, and the other groups are not, to me, it just flies in the face of equality. That's all I'll say. And
Okay.
yeah, because I've heard all the arguments about, they had this investment. Well, everybody made an investment in property and how their property. I mean, the empty property today is so valuable. Whether or not they have a structure on it is no impact on the value. So that's
Okay.
it. Okay, I don't want to monopolize it, but I want to also switch, if I can, to that SB 9 and 10. I'm so
Okay.
happy that you voted no on those, and I've written to our city council members to see what they can do. I imagine you may know that Redondo Beach has taken or started some action to limit the impact of SB 9, and I'm hopeful that our local government can do. Do you have any suggestions as to how they can fight? Not, I know that ACA 7 that you worked for, that's excellent. I surely appreciate that. So is there any concrete steps that you would suggest to our city council to make specific details in the zoning? Because I'm a little concerned that I love where I live. I love the situation. I love the R1 properties, and now the opportunities that anyone can build a mother-in-law quarters and rent it out and not have parking spaces or anything. The density, as Heidi, as Hill said, we're maxed out already. And to add upon that extra units, I'm really appalled by that. Okay,
Mhm.
I'll shut up. Thank you. I'll mute myself. Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you for raising the concern. So, I think it would be appropriate for me to turn it over to Mayor Stern, because I do, being consistent with being a believer in local control. I mean, I think I've stated my position that I think mayors and city councils are in the best position. But from my perspective, I would just say this, that as I indicated earlier, not only did I introduce ACA 7, but there are some local South Bay residents. I'm not sure who might be taking up the mantle in Manhattan Beach, but I know in Redondo Beach, Mayor Bill Brand is one of the ringleaders of this effort to get this, essentially get ACA 7 directly onto the ballot through a ballot proposition. And so I would suggest, John, that you contact Redondo Beach Mayor Bill Brand to get more information about what he's working on. But Mayor Stern, what do you think?
Well, thank you. And thank you, John. I have seen your concerns and I do appreciate them. And as you stated, Assemblymember, we too are bringing ACA 7 to our near council meeting for a discussion about supporting that amendment. Because in Manhattan Beach, we recognize, as I said, that increasing density does not necessarily increase affordable housing. And these bills should be an attempt to create an affordable housing. And it's, affordability in Manhattan Beach would need to come with, at least with incentives or something that would make that a more possible initiatives. So, there are things that we can be looking at. We can be looking at how to mitigate some of the effects of the SB 9 and 10, so that we're not just increasing density, imposing more impositions on our infrastructure, and just growing what is really just luxury housing, which was not the intention of those bills at all. And we'll be looking at those as well. I've seen in other cities, I've seen some of the initiatives that they have brought forward, and ways to look at whether we can assure that the housing is not, that these multiple dwellings are not being taken, there's not an attempt to take advantage of the number of dwellings on any particular properties. And so, John, we will be looking at that. We will make sure that, it's not, we don't have a lot of leeway in those two initiatives. So it's pretty clear what the expectation is. And we are going to try to find ways to mitigate so that it doesn't overly impact the density in Manhattan Beach. But I appreciate your concern, and I appreciate your prodding us to keep looking at those initiatives.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Aaron, I see Alan Kirschenbaum has a question in chat, but who had their hand up next?
Yeah, so Anita Rodal has had her hand up for a while now, so I think I'm gonna ask her
Okay.
to unmute. Oh, she did it herself. There we go.
And it's Alt Y in case anybody's looking for how to put your hand up on there.
Okay.
So in the scheme of things, my question is really unimportant, but it's something that I'm curious about. So I don't remember how long ago it was. There was an issue of whether schools in California were going to continue to teach cursive. And I wanted to find out, I mean, I'm in favor of them teaching cursive. I think we'd be creating a separate class of citizens and people that are very much handicapped if they don't have that basic skill. So just wanted to find out where you stand on that. And Mayor Stern, how is that working out in Manhattan Beach School Districts? Been a long time since my nieces were in the school district here.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's an important issue for all the cursive writers, including myself. My daughter's in the 7th grade now, and I know that she had to learn how to write in cursive, and I thought it was a great exercise. So I'm not sure what's being done in Manhattan Beach Unified. I know that Mayor Stern is in charge of the city and not in charge of the school district. But Mayor Stern, do you know if cursive is being taught in Manhattan Beach Unified?
Wow. I wish I knew. I can tell you that as the mother of 4 sons who all went through the Manhattan Beach School District, they didn't learn to write well. So, and that's not the fault of the school district, but their handwriting might be as challenged as mine is. So, but that's a great, here's what I'm going to ask you. I would love to connect with you, and I can get that answer for you. We do have a wonderful relationship with the leaders in our school district, and I'd be happy to ask, and I'd be happy to connect back with you. And so I'm going to I'll put my email address, my city email, in the chat.
Okay.
So connect back with me, and I'll either ask the question or I'll put you in contact with with the leaders in the school district.
Awesome. Thanks so
Interesting
much.
question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think when my daughter was learning cursive, I think there were some parents that were questioning whether it was necessary or not. But it's like it's a basic sign of a well-educated citizen, in my
I
opinion.
know, right?
Yeah. So thank you for your question. All right, Aaron, who's next?
Okay, I also write in cursive, so I sympathize with that. So, okay, I think we had so in the chat, I think Alan Kirschenbaum had a question. Alan, I can read the question, or if you, maybe I'll give you an opportunity to raise your hand or unmute yourself. I'll give you a second or two to do that. Okay, there you are.
I figured it was easier if I gave the question for reading rather than trying to recite it.
Okay, yeah, I can read if you want, or you could just feel free to ask it however you prefer.
I think the Assemblyman has it in front of him. He can go with it.
Okay. All right. So I see that. Well, I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and so I'm in favor of making sure there's room in our prison. This is a question. I'm in favor of making sure there's room in our prison system for convicted violent felons by freeing up space that is used for non-violent criminals. However, in Manhattan Beach, we do have problems with quality of life crimes such as shoplifting, public drinking, and DUIs. Any suggestions for helping getting our community focused on real crime versus the perception of quality of life crimes? Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your question. I think you're suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we should be prioritizing our efforts to crack down on dangerous criminals, and that our prison system should be prioritizing keeping dangerous criminals locked up rather than being used for so-called quality of life crimes. So yes,
But
I
let me just phrase it
Yeah.
a little bit differently, which is,
okay, all right.
it seems like the constituents in our city, we don't have much violent crime in Manhattan Beach, plain and simple. We do have some, yes, thank God, it's wonderful. But as someone who grew up in New York, what I see in the crime blotter, in the Beach Reporter and things like that, kind of makes me laugh. And I recognize that I can run from my house to communities nearby that do have significant crime problems.
Mhm.
But in our community, people are upset because of this feeling that low-level crime isn't being prosecuted, and that they apparently feel there's a lot of it. I'm just looking for solutions to communicate to our fellow citizens whether or not there really is a lot of it, and what is effective prosecution of those. I mean, do we want a 17-year-old going to jail because he shoplifted a six-pack? I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you, Alan, for your question. Maybe Bruce, how are crime rates in Manhattan Beach?
Well, I think that you make a good point, Alan, and that is, we are fortunate. We don't have a lot of violent crime in Manhattan Beach. And, I think you can trace that back to a number of things. Certainly the leadership at the top with Chief Abel, a very, very robust and significant neighborhood watch program. We have eyes and ears all over the community. We have constituents that, report anything and everything they see. And of course, the Manhattan Beach Police Department motto has been no call too small. And so, all that adds up to the fact that we are, probably more focused on the crimes of opportunity that happen, that in many cases are caused by people and their lackadaisical attitudes towards locking doors or cars and leaving garage doors open and things like that. We do have some violent crime that spills over into our neighborhoods from neighboring agencies. A few weeks back, we had an LAPD chase that terminated in Manhattan Beach that brought a lot of attention, with helicopters overhead that went on for several hours. We're part of a bigger law enforcement community. We all work together through mutual aid and are there to help other agencies respond. But the fact is, we don't have a big problem here. But when we do have it, we address it aggressively. Now, of course, you're right. We have low-level crimes that aren't going to get prosecuted, and there's a lot of debate going on right now about the district attorney and what they will and won't prosecute. And I will tell you that our police department has a very, very good working relationship with the district attorney's office and works closely on those cases where we believe that it's important that they get prosecuted, and do everything we can in that respect. So we're blessed, and when you have crimes that are things like theft and burglary and things like that in other communities aren't significant, to hear they get the attention that they deserve, and we respond accordingly. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to engage with you more on that if you like.
If I may, Alan, go ahead.
I would just hope we could get some more statistics out to let people know that we do have that relationship with the DEA, that repeat offenders are facing greater problems than might otherwise be perceived in the press.
So in other words, Alan, you want to make sure that the repeat offenders are held accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm a former deputy district attorney, former deputy attorney general, and I think we should have a balanced approach. We should be holding the dangerous criminals accountable. Make sure that protection of our communities and our neighborhoods are number one priority, and that includes locking up the bad guys. At the same time, I think there's still plenty of room for us to get smarter on fighting crime. I want to share this great example of this initiative in the beach cities. There is in Redondo Beach a homeless diversion court And what they're doing, you may have heard about this, but they're taking what you're calling the quality of life crimes, like public drinking, or urinating in public, or something like that. Basically, homeless people committing a lot of these quality of life crimes. They get sent to these homeless diversion courts, where rather than prosecuting them essentially for what some people would say crimes of poverty, that they're urinating in public because they don't have their own bathroom. But rather than criminalizing poverty, this homeless diversion court is directing these individuals charged with these quality of life crimes to receive mental health treatment if they need the mental health treatment, or to get substance abuse treatment if that's what they need, job placement, housing navigation. It's a wraparound court program, and so I actually don't know if Manhattan Beach is participating in that effort. Mayor Stern has her hand up, so let me turn it over to her.
Oh, and I'm sorry if I didn't want to interrupt, but I
Oh, no.
did want to just follow up with that one comment that you made. And I'm glad that you described the homeless court in Redondo Beach, because we have been closely following that as well. And we are very interested in some way incorporating that into Manhattan Beach. And we've been working on that for several months, whether that is joining the Redondo Beaches program, or we are also working with the county and discussing with the district attorney's office a way to possibly create a homeless court that has a regional approach here in the South Bay cities. So recognizing that, that it's that punishing somebody for these, what we call these low-level crimes, these crimes of desperation, or these quality of life type of crimes, is not going to get them out of the cycle, and that, as you described, that providing the services that can help them get out of that cycle and get on to, living stably and more productively is the goal of these diversion programs, and is something that we support here in Manhattan Beach. So thank you for describing that. And thank you, Alan, for your question.
All right. Aaron, who's next?
Looks like we got Jerry O'Connor with his hand raised.
Okay.
Jerry? I ask him to unmute here.
Hi, Jerry. Oh, he's probably looking for that. What was that? Unmute? Was that Alt F?
Alt Y, I believe.
Alt Y. Jerry, try Alt Y.
No, that's just to put your hand up.
Oh, okay.
Looks like he's got it.
Oh, there we go. Hello, Jerry.
Yeah, hi, Al. I was just trying to turn on my video as well, because I wanted you to see me while we talk, because I had it off. If I can do that real quick, it'll work. But in any case, thanks very much for having this evening, Al. I really appreciate you doing this special occasion for Manhattan Beach coffee. And there, I think I just got to click once more and my video will come on maybe. But I want to start off with an apology. I'm always one to try to foster more public engagement. And if you remove the staff here, unfortunately, we have like less than a dozen Manhattan Beach community members that have joined us. And I had hoped for a better turnout. Nevertheless, I'm happy to talk to you. And I really appreciate the effort. And the fact that you're willing to do this with such a low turnout just speaks to your commitment to us. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I'm a strong supporter of yours. I've always had your sign in my yard, and we don't always agree on things, but you've served us well, and I continue to appreciate that. We've had a lot of questions tonight that I consider to be sort of local Manhattan Beach issues, and I appreciate that our mayor and our city manager are here, and George Gabriel too is out there, I think, and it's great to have our local staff. But this is a meeting about Assembly District 66 and regional issues from my standpoint anyway. And while we want to hear everybody's concerns, I do have some issues that are regional, but important, I think, to us here in Manhattan Beach. And, you know, I tend to focus on environmental issues.
Mhm.
And you know, to that end, if anybody's noticed, you know, I check the EPA air quality app regularly. And when I got up this morning, it was 161, deep into the red zone. You know, we've had some Santa Anas, and winter conditions are sometimes tough. But when it comes to that, it's a health and safety issue. And I'm here to tell you, and I know you might guess what I'm about to talk about, but our local refineries are a big contributor to our air quality challenges and our health and safety issues.
Mhm.
And we always seem focused here in Manhattan Beach on Chevron. And thankfully, you know, I'm not thrilled about being a neighbor of Chevron's, and I'm not thrilled about how they respond when they do have an incident there. We tend to invite them in to state what the issue was, and the answer is always the same. We're studying the cause, and we never hear again on the particular issue. Bruce, you'll probably remember a couple of years ago, there was a huge fire, made the 11 o'clock news, and the next council meeting, you know, we had the now retired public spokesman from Chevron come in and say, yeah, we're studying what happened, and we'll let you know. Never heard from them again. So that's nice. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the Torrance refinery is as close to us in Southeast Manhattan Beach as the Chevron refinery is. And the Torrance refinery continues to use hydrofluoric acid. And Al, you are a great leader of the effort to attempt to change from hydrofluoric acid to a now very commercially available alternative for a while. But then, from my standpoint, I'm here to tell you, it was very clear to me that ultimately you were won over by the unfounded claim by Torrance Refinery that it was going to be a jobs issue if they had to convert. They didn't even make it about the money. They made a false threat that they would lose jobs, when in fact, the construction project to change from hydrofluoric acid, which we're in the kill zone, folks, when they have a big leak, and they came very close to doing it a couple of years ago. They claimed that they would lose jobs, and realistically, it would increase employment because the transition itself would be a major project. And yes, it would cost significant dollars. But I'm not going to get into a discussion of health and safety value of human life here. But ultimately, they got to the governor and removed the AQMD member, Joseph Liu, who was laying the foundation to embattle the legal challenge that would occur if, in fact, the AQMD supported the ban and replacement of hydrofluoric acid. So when he was removed, the AQMD quickly changed about face, and they failed us. They completely walked away from the issue. And frankly, when you joined the effort to be concerned about jobs and lost your strong stance to oppose MHF, and I'm here to tell you, I'm the one that went to the Redondo Beach City Council, the Hermosa Beach City Council, Manhattan Beach City Council, got them all to sign resolutions supporting the removal of MHF. And here we are today. We still have it. The risk is still there. And that refinery, unlike the Chevron refinery, to their respect, continues to be very poorly managed. And it's an antiquated refinery. And we continue to run that very high risk. Okay, all that said, we are where we are. The mitigation factors that they agreed to have not been fulfilled and completed. So the risk continues at the exact same level it was a couple of years ago when we went through all that. And there is no plan to address it. I even heard that Torrance Mayor Pat Fury spoke at a local, I believe it was the Southwood residents meeting, and said he now believes the refinery is no longer going to be there in 10 years, so we don't need to do anything. They're going to be gone soon. he used to say 20 years and now he's saying 10 years. And while I would hope that would be true, I don't believe that to be true. And that's not a reason for us not to do anything. So my question to you, Al, and I'm sorry for the lengthy introduction, but I want to give a little background, is not one that asks, what are you doing now about it? But do you anticipate revisiting that issue at all, or do you consider it now? And I guess I want to interrupt myself. I really appreciate the effort that you are working on supporting Bill Brandt and his housing, you know, fighting the state on taking our regional zoning control for housing. You know, as a past planning commission chairman in Manhattan Beach, that's an item that's very close to my heart, is that we maintain local control. I really appreciate your support of that. Hildy, I hope our council will take a stronger position to support Bill Brand in his effort, because he is clearly the leader in this in our South Bay. And I like for us to be leading on such important issues, but at least joining someone who's leading stronger and better and louder than we are. But Al, do you see this issue being revisited at all, or do you think we're just going to ride this out and hope for the best and hope that the Torrance refinery doesn't kill us all?
The short answer is yes. I plan on continuing to fight to get rid of hydrofluoric acid at the Torrance refinery. I mean, my position on the issue remains the same. It poses a risk to South Bay communities that we should not we should not have to accept. For me, the question is you know, I have to pick and choose my fights. I mean, I introduced a bill in 2016, AB 1645, to try to ban hydrofluoric acid, but you know, I couldn't even get enough votes to get that bill out of committee. The reason why, and Jerry, I think you know this, but for the sake of, you know, others on this call, the reason why is because of the powerful alliance of big oil and big labor. You know, when I talk about jobs, I'm talking about the jobs represented by labor unions representing refinery workers and oil industry workers, not only at the Torrance refinery, but throughout the state of California. You know, when you have, you know, big oil and big labor opposing a bill, it dies, you know, it lives a very short life. That bill lives a very short life in the legislature, and that's exactly what happened with my attempt to ban hydrofluoric acid, not only at the Torrance refinery, but at the only other refinery in Wilmington that also uses hydrofluoric acid. So, you know, I haven't forgotten you, Jerry. I haven't forgotten all my friends at the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance. You know, I continue to support in every way I can the call to ban hydrofluoric acid. But you know, there's in case you didn't notice, I mean, I had another big bill this year to you know, the California Climate Crisis Act to try to dramatically reduce statewide greenhouse gas emissions so that California can get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2045, you know, along with, you know, in line with the rest of the world that's trying to fight climate change. You know, who am I fighting against on that bill? It's the same powerful opposition, big oil and big labor. And so, you know, I'm picking my fights. You know, I'm sorry. I you know, I might have disappointed you, but I think when the time is right, I'm ready to take up that mantle again to try to get rid of hydrofluoric acid.
Thanks very much, Al. I know it's a tough battle, and I really appreciate your response. And good to hear you're still willing to address it. I really appreciate that. I'll just remind us of one thing that did occur when, and I can't recall if it was at the AQMD meeting or if it was at a LA County Board of Supervisors meeting, but Janice Hahn did an outstanding job of calling upon directly the representative, and I think he was the local president of the Torrance refinery, and saying, have you told your union workers that jobs will be lost if you have to change? And he said, no, we haven't. And it was a silent campaign. They said we'll lose jobs, but when called out in public, he would not commit to that. So it was unfounded, the entire claim. And anyway, that's how we do battle, I guess, these days. But I'll repeat again. I really appreciate your response, Al, and I'm sorry to hit you a little bit hard with it tonight, but it was an opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, no, Jerry, we'll keep fighting. We'll keep fighting to get rid of hydrofluoric acid at all refineries. So
cool.
thank you.
And I'm not a one-issue guy, but that's what I figured I'd talk to you about tonight.
All right, thank you. Mayor Stern, did you want to address, have any comments on either the refinery issues or the local control issue?
I think we've talked about the local control, and I think Jerry knows how I feel about that. And Jerry, you know how important environmental issues are to me, and also to the Assembly member who is chairs that issue in the Assembly. So thank you for raising that and keep holding that as an important issue. It is also the important issue for the property in Redondo Beach as well. So I appreciate you keeping us on our toes with respect to the environment. It's very important to me as well.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Aaron, who's next?
Looks like it's Elise Gura. Elise.
Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And Aaron, thank you for saying my name right. I can't tell you how often that doesn't happen.
Not as often as Muratsuchi, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
So first of all, I want to thank you for attending the Uematsu Memorial. Chuck Courier, who was the activist for that, is the husband of one of my best friends. And thank you very much for being there. One of the challenges facing communities as well as our country is a departure from civility in civil discourse. And I wonder whether you would share any of your recommendations for how to manage through that when it's encountered in local meetings.
Yeah, well, I know that this is right up Mayor Stern's alley. She has led her initiative to fight hate, but from my end, I see as much as anyone the hate and the divisiveness that of course we've been seeing on our national news in recent years, and unfortunately we've seen that trickle down to our local politics, and I think there are several reasons for that. The social media, the echo chamber that feeds and encourages the extremes of the far left and the far right, the increasing hostility, especially when you get people that can make comments without having to face them in person, whether it's on Nextdoor or on many other social media outlets, that it seems like it empowers people to just get really nasty in ways that they wouldn't if they were dealing with them on a face-to-face basis. I don't have any easy answers. Maybe Mayor, I want to invite Mayor Stern to give share her perspective. But I think on the one hand, we do need to recognize that it's a larger systemic problem involving social media, involving cable news, and the extreme politics that when we can't even get our national and state and local elected officials to agree upon whether or not who won the last presidential election. I think that shows that we can't even agree on the facts, much less on civility. But I think we just need to continue to, for myself, speaking personally, I try to be respectful to everyone. I try to hear them out, whether I agree or disagree with them, and try to, like some people say, be the change that you want to be. We all need to practice what we preach, and to that end, I know I've had to deal with my share of hateful, nasty attacks, political attacks against me over the years, but I've always tried to treat people with respect and to keep the focus on the issues and getting things done and what we can do to make our communities better. So, Mayor Stern, I know you've been leading. Thank you so much, Mayor Stern, for your leadership on your initiative. Maybe you can talk about your initiative, your kindness initiative, and talk about how that responds to Elisa's concern.
Thank you. I love to talk about my kindness initiative. And Elise, I really appreciate your question, because we are not alone in Manhattan Beach, as you know, with what is really kind of polarizing conversations and very divisive conversations. And I was just at an event this past Saturday where many of our local leaders in other cities were expressing the same concerns, that they have concerns as they're trying to come to consensus in their own councils and when they're trying to bring their communities back together. And it is definitely concerning. And it's something that we've seen a trend, maybe even for the last 6 years or so. And I think that during the challenges that we've had over these last couple of years with coronavirus, when we've had economic challenges, we've had racial challenges, we've had health challenges, it's just exacerbated this very unsettling feeling that so many people are feeling, and it's bubbling to the top, and it's causing these conversations and these conflicts that are just so difficult to address. And I was very concerned about that, because here in Manhattan Beach, we are a city of a community, and that's what we hold so dear. We say we're here for the beautiful beach, for our safety, for our school, our strong school systems, but we stay because we feel this connection to our community in ways that's really, I feel, unique in Manhattan Beach. It's certainly why I stayed. I appreciate walking my neighborhood and knowing my neighbors and caring about my neighbors. And we do that. We extend ourselves to each other. But in these last couple of years, and maybe even beyond that, we've seen that breaking down. And so I really want to see us getting back together. I want to see us a community that's a supportive community again. And I want to see us turn that conversation from the negative to the positive. And I think one of the ways that we do that is to really focus on the positive, and to focus on the kindness that's really inherent in so many of us, and in the kindness that we have exhibited, but we haven't talked about, certainly in these last couple of years. So when the Assembly member is noting what my initiative is, and Elise, I think that you know it well as well, I have introduced a kindness initiative to try to continue to highlight the kindness that our community experiences. And I will so I've started this with locally, and I'm recognizing people for their acts of kindness during our council meetings. I've also been working with the Beach Cities Health District, and we have a portal where people can submit their stories of kindness so that we can collect these stories and we can share the stories of different acts of kindness. both because it has healing effects to the person that has exhibited the act of kindness, but also to the recipient of the kindness. And then I'll just give you a little teaser that I've been speaking to to other leaders in our neighboring communities, and I'm going to try to introduce a little competition so that we can all be heightening the recognition of kindness, and so that we can share in the stories among the beach communities. So I think it's really important. I think it's really difficult. You ask how we can, as leaders, and how councils can work together more collaboratively given this environment. And it is a challenge. It's a challenge in a lot of ways, but I think when we all recognize that we care so much about our community, that we should be continuing to work together for that specific goal, and that our differences personally, or our differences politically, and our divisiveness or our polarization should be put aside so that we can continue to work together. And I would love to hear any other recommendations on how to do that more effectively. But it is what I am trying, and it is what I find to be so important. And I think we can heal if we really focus on kindness and hope. So thank you for asking that question.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Stern. That is such an important message, especially nowadays. So I see Jerry clapping for you, Mayor. Thank you very much for your leadership.
Can I
Okay,
share a
Aaron.
funny little anecdote about how to diffuse people when they start yelling at you and doing things like that? My husband used it once with a client who was screaming at him, and he stopped him. He said, "Excuse me, you're not my father. You don't have a right to talk to me like that." And the guy just burst out laughing. He's like, "You're right." It just totally diffused him. So
Yeah,
try a variation of that. It might work, it might not.
humor is always a good weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, who's next?
Okay, so looks like I don't see any hands raised right now.
Yeah, a question from Natalie Robinson.
Yeah, so basically I'll just read that one out, I guess. It's we kind of covered it, but I'll just maybe read it. It's a question regarding increasing crime, break-ins, shoplifting, vehicle thefts, robberies, etc. What can be done regarding arrest slash prosecution of offenders, and especially repeat offenders from state, county, local levels?
Yes. So, Natalie, thank you very much for your question. I'm not sure if you're still on the call, but I think we've all been seeing a lot of the news recently about some high-profile crime incidents, the grab and go, retail thefts. Not sure if you've seen any of that in Manhattan Beach. I hope not. There was a recent. There was just an article in the LA Times yesterday about the Torrance police warning that it looks like there's a burglary ring that's targeting Asian American households, and it's just on and on. We know that the statistics are showing that there is definitely a spike in violent crimes in big cities, especially across the country. It's my understanding that at least according to the data, that while there is a slight increase in property crimes, that it's not as high as it was in 2019, but it's still, the direction of the trend is of concern. So again, for me as a former prosecutor, I strongly support cracking down on dangerous criminals, on criminals that threaten public safety, and especially repeat offenders. I think they need to be held accountable. But as Natalie and everyone else on this call may know, there's been a movement in the state of California where voters in the past 10 years have voted to support so-called criminal justice reform efforts to basically move away from some of the more harsh criminal punishment measures that were passed in the 1990s, the last time that that crime rates really spiked, efforts like 3 strikes and you're out, sending people to prison for 25 years to life for repeated felony offenses. So on the one hand, it looks like Californians, California voters, not just politicians, but California voters, have been moving, toward these efforts to try to get, what some people call smarter on crime, like addressing the root causes of crime, whether it's, poverty, mental illness, or drug addiction. But I think there needs to be, we need to also recognize that there needs to be a balance, that we need to lock up dangerous criminal offenders in order to protect our communities. There should be a balancing act. Bruce, have you seen any indication in terms of any increase in property crimes in Manhattan Beach?
I think there have been some increase in the property crimes. I don't think it's anything, that was huge, but it's a trend we've seen everywhere during the pandemic, certainly. And if I could just add on, when it comes to reforms, that Derek, Chief Abel in particular, he's involved with the California Police Chiefs Association. He's on the board, and they are very active in terms of any types of reforms that can be enacted that help strengthen the criminal justice system in terms of keeping people behind bars that should be there for repeat crimes. Back to your original point, however, we haven't seen any smash and grab crimes, fortunately, but we certainly have our intelligence working overtime in terms of the information sharing that happens between the South Bay cities and law enforcement in the county as a whole. All very connected, all very engaged with each other in trying to make sure that we're aware of anything that potentially could come our way. And honestly, that was probably one of the biggest things that helped us during civil unrest last year, was having that information channel. And frankly, because of Chief Abel and his connections locally within the community, and knowing some of the younger populations, was able to get information that was helpful for us to address some of the potential unrest that fortunately we didn't see in Manhattan Beach. In fact, we turned it into a positive here. So that's a lot of what goes on in law enforcement. It's, as they say, the 90% of the iceberg you don't see below the surface, that really is working overtime to get this information together and stop crime before it even happens in the first place.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I know that you mentioned a lot of the rioting that was taking place last summer, and I know that the Torrance Police had shared with me that they had intelligence that there were an organized group of looters that were coming to the Del Amo Mall in Torrance, and so they set up a perimeter to preempt that, and it sounded like credible evidence that the Torrance PD, through the sharing of information that you just described among law enforcement agencies, was able to prevent a similar looting situation at the Del Amo Mall. So, I definitely do support our local police departments in their efforts to keep our communities safe, and I hope that all of you will continue to keep Manhattan Beach safe. Okay, Aaron, who's next?
So I don't see any hands raised, but there was the Gray family submitted a question on the chat. Actually, 2 questions separated by about 30 minutes.
Okay, you want to read them?
Yeah, I'll read both of them. I guess I'll let you take it how you want it. So, hello, we have recently had multiple burglaries on our street. We understand this is the result of not prosecuting criminals. What is your opinion, and what is the state doing to reduce increasing crime?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I think we might have given started my answer to your question, but I think ultimately the solution, like I've introduced bills to try to restore some of the criminal punishments for the repeat offenders, especially. But those bills, either didn't get a hearing in the public safety committee, or it didn't move very far in the legislature, and that's because I'm up against people that don't share my views on the need to strike a balance between being holding criminals accountable while being smart in fighting crime. Some people just don't want to. The argument is that on the other side is that they don't want to see what they see as past failed efforts to try to fight crime just by locking up people that they call for addressing the root causes of crime. In this case, during the pandemic, they've been focusing on how disproportionately Black and Brown communities have been on the receiving end of over incarceration, and that we should be addressing issues of economic desperation arising out of the pandemic. I think that's a fair summary of the opponents of efforts to increase criminal penalties. I think the ultimate solution is up to the voters of the state of California. Just like I indicated earlier, the majority of California voters voted to support criminal justice reform. But if you feel that the pendulum has swung too far to the left, and if you feel that there needs to be like I believe, if you feel that there needs to be a balancing act, between holding criminals accountable while making sure that we're giving more mental health and substance abuse treatment for those that need it, then I think, whether it's about the next election for our district attorney, or whether it's for any other opportunity for you to make your opinion heard, I think that's up to the voters of Manhattan Beach, Los Angeles County, and the state of California. So Aaron, I think we might have time for one more question. We wanted to open it up. Unless there are other questions, I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. But Aaron, I think the Gray family has one more question.
Yes, if you want to answer it very quickly, we are up on time. I guess I'll read it very quickly here. So, Member Tsuchi, do you support Governor Newsom's promise requirement for all children to be vaccinated to attend school?
The short answer is yes. I do believe that we need to not only think about individual concerns about vaccines, but that we need to think about the overall public health, doing everything we can to protect the general public. I know that the issue of the school vaccine mandate is going to be probably one of the most controversial issues next year. I expect legislation to tighten up the requirements on the school vaccine mandate, but I do believe, like I said in the beginning, I do believe that vaccines, based on the best available data, the best available science that we have in fighting this global pandemic, that vaccines are our best weapon to protect as many people in our communities as possible. But of course, I know that there are children that may have special circumstances where they may qualify for exemptions based on health reasons, on legitimate health reasons. Those, of course, need to be acknowledged. But in general, I do believe that that children should be vaccinated once I should clarify, once, as the governor has indicated, once the FDA fully approves the vaccines for those school-age children. Right now, the FDA has only fully approved the Pfizer vaccine for those 16 of age or older. I believe that's the latest FDA position. But I do believe that vaccines are going to continue to be important in our fight against the pandemic. Any other questions that we have, Aaron?
Nope, that is it. And it's good thing too, because we are up on time. So
Okay.
brief
All
closing
right.
remarks.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope this was a interesting conversation. I hope it was worth your spending the evening together. I want to give special thanks again to Manhattan Beach Mayor Hildy Stern and City Manager Bruce Moe. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager. Any closing comments?
Well, thank you for holding this for Manhattan Beach. I think we always appreciate when you're so accessible and willing to meet with us and talk to us. So thank you for including me.
Thank you.
And thank you. And don't forget, everybody, there's a council meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock on Zoom. Come on down.
And fireworks on Sunday.
Fireworks on Sunday.
Okay. Well, on that note, happy holidays to everyone, and hope everyone stays safe.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.